Western Cape Education Department, and I'm again joined by wonderful Adil.
Good morning, Andina. My name is Odile Burden, and I'm a music teacher and the head of strings at Rustenburg Girls Junior.
Wonderful. And Adil, we are not alone today. We have someone very special who's joining us.
Hello, my name is Liesel Hartman, and I'm the head of the Center for Art Education at the Zeitz-Mocha.
It is an absolute honor today to introduce you to Liesel, who is a friend and a dear colleague of ours. So Liesel said she is the head of education at the Zeitz-Mocha, but she believes that education in and through the creative and visual arts is a powerful tool for positive change, healing, developing a sense of identity, and bringing a sense of enjoyment and excitement to learning. Liesel's vision for the Zeitz-Mocha Center for Arts Education is to provide a meaningful museum experience for all audiences, whatever their age, background, or expectation. Now, Liesel and Adil, we have a jam-packed day today. You've got to brace yourselves. We are going to look at Indigenous dance, Indigenous music. We're going to look at foundation phase dance, foundation phase visual art. We're going to jump into drama and doing playmaking. Isn't that amazing?
That's incredible.
And we have an illustrious group of international speakers. Of course, we cannot wait for Professor Anne Bamford, Ollie Tunmer, and Patrice Baldwin.
Oh, so exciting. I just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping this morning. We realized that some people were having some sound issues yesterday. Please make sure that every time you enter into a session, whether it be on the main stage or on a breakaway, that you select join audio. This will ensure that you actually can hear what is happening. And also, please check your speaker settings on your computer. Make sure that it is set to default, and that will also mitigate some problems. And then please remember to engage on social media. Please post everything that you are doing using the hashtag hashtag CAC 2024. Now, I'm very excited that we get to give a prize. Away this morning for the most engagement on social media so far. This is going to, Tuelo Vincent Di Tabela. Congratulations. There is a Takealot voucher on the way. Our administrators will be in touch. As Anina mentioned earlier, it is a jam-packed day. We have 9 breakaways. Incredible. Please make sure that you set up your personal agendas for the day. It will make sure that the day just runs so much smoother for you. As I mentioned earlier, we've already given 1 prize away. We've got several prizes to give away through at the end of the day. Please make sure that you are taking part in the challenges, that you are posting polls, you are doing all of the amazing things that will help you get on top of the leaderboard. I see that Jeannie's already been ousted from the top spot of the leaderboard since last night. Sorry, Jeannie. But yes, that is really exciting to see you all engaging. The big competition that we've got running today is the jingle, the 30-second jingle contest. And we wanted to give you a little taster just to kick things off. Our Creative Arts Conference team this morning recorded a little jingle, so here's a teaser.
We are the 2024 CAC crew, jamming on the back end, bringing kids a bag. Music, art, drama, dance, we got it all. It's you is upon us, so let's have a joy.
Oh, man.
That was absolutely fantastic. I think we need to give you guys a hand. Well done. That
Thank you
was
very
brilliant.
much.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
I think that will give everyone a good idea of what to expect, really.
Please, just have fun with it.
Absolutely.
Really.
Everyone, just look at your app and look at the community tab. There's wonderful opportunities to build community. This is all about building networks of like-minded individuals, sharing ideas, sharing resources. I just went onto the meet and greet, on this app. And Liesel, I think you and I must get out of our little comfort zone. There's a lot happening. There's such a lot happening There is roller skating in Sea Point as an art form, take note. But we can also go and do break dancing in Sea
Wow.
Point. So that all happens now in March. There is working from STEM to STEAM workshops if we want to be a little bit more academic. Art-rich schools. There is such a lot happening. So please post onto this meet-ups and virtual meets on the app what you're up to, what you're doing. Invite people from all across and, you know, you will definitely get your audiences. There's also beautiful discussions in the groups. And I must say, you know, the art is all about practical ability, practical skill development, but it's all underpinned by theory and very rich theory. And I think there's about 17 articles or more articles already posted, you know, on the app. So please look at those articles. It's beautiful reading, it is enriching, and it really, you know, expands your horizons. So please take note of this app, the Hoover app. It really provides you with a lot that you can, you know, take forward. And as Adil said yesterday, Liesl, the conference doesn't stop here. I think you will know with your presentation on visual arts yesterday, it was amazing. Thanks, Liesl, for that again.
Such a pleasure.
There was such a lot of beautiful, rich interaction and discussion, and people wanted to go on forever. But I'm sure people have already spoken to you as a facilitator, and that's the beauty of this app, isn't it?
Absolutely, and what I'm really enjoying here is that we've come to this place to learn from really excellent individuals, but judging from the meetups that people are setting up, we have excellence within our ranks already.
Yes.
And you know, we're learning from each other, we're wanting to share with each other. That's something that I'm really taking inspiration from.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that is absolutely true. Yes. So yeah, it's what we would like to stress is that the speakers, the facilitators would like to talk to you. They would like to discuss with you. And, you know, like any workshop, you all run workshops, you all are teachers. The richness really comes from the participants. So important to share what you have, you know, share ideas. Yesterday I spoke to my team, and there was such a lot of inspiration drawn from the workshops. And, you know, things would come up where Debbie would say, you know, I've developed that. And another one would say, I've developed that. I never thought, you know, that I could share that with others. And yeah, we've got the beautiful people from Kuruman in the Northern Cape. Shout out to all of you guys. Thanks for being part of this, and really a big shout out to our Northern Cape colleagues. We are with you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think I can also give a shout out to our Kimberley colleagues. I also got some messages from Kimberley that joined in yesterday. Hopefully you're with us today also.
Yes, absolutely. The Northern Cape is going. So this is a shout out to all the other provinces. We see things are happening, and yeah, well, let's see where we get the most, you know, hashtag CAC 2024 post from, and let's keep it rolling.
Absolutely.
Liesl, over to you.
I would like to take this time now to introduce someone that's been an inspiration to me and very special to me in my research. I'd like to introduce Professor Anne Bamford. Professor Bamford is a highly respected figure in the field of education with a reputation for innovative thinking and an unparalleled understanding of the future of work. As the Strategic Director of Education and Skills for the City of London, she has played a crucial role in the shaping of educational policies that reflect the rapidly changing world we live in today.
When Mr. Hendrik Marie, our event director, first told the team that Professor Anne Bamford was coming on
Yes.
board, we were stunned.
Yes.
We were absolutely stunned at the
Absolutely.
privilege that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you know, to have someone of the likes of Anne Bamford with us today, you know, what an honor. And we know it will enrich, you know, the discussion.
Absolutely. Professor Bamford's research has been an incredible way to think about our education and to think about the arts, to think about the way in which we work together and our methodology. Her research has focused on a range of ideas, including creativity, lifelong learning, and technology. She is known for her concept of fusion skills, which describes the combination of skills, the capabilities needed for effective leadership in the 21st century. So I'd like to introduce Anne's topic of her keynote address this morning, which is equality, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, placing everyone at the heart of education's reimagining. A very warm welcome to you, Professor Bamford, and it is such a privilege and an honor to have you with us this morning.
So it looks like we have a small little technical glitch in getting Anne Bamford on screen. So we will just give it a second for her to join us. But Liesl, you introduced us to Anne right at the beginning, isn't it?
Yes, it was a couple of years ago. I had the privilege of doing some art education projects in Denmark, and they had just had their entire arts education system evaluated and researched by Anne. They had incredible things to say about her. We visited various educational institutions in Denmark to see what was happening on the ground there, and we also had the opportunity to share our experiences that we were having in Cape Town and to speak about the very sort of diverse range of issues, of problems, of curriculum change with them, and it was a very, very rich experience. But it was very clear that Anne was really at the heart and the drive of that research at the time.
So with that, Liesl, I think we are ready to welcome Anne Bamford.
Good morning, Anne, and welcome. It is really wonderful to have you here this morning. I am going to hand over directly to you. I know everybody is waiting with bated breath and really excited to hear your keynote address this morning.
And it looks as if we do not have sound at the moment.
Unmute.
Just see if you are not muted on your screen. We are still not having audio. Will you click on Connect Audio Device? Connect Audio Device. If you can click,
there we go.
Ah, we have you. We hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
We hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you now.
Fantastic.
Lovely, excellent. I just said welcome everybody, and it sounds like you had a wonderful day yesterday, and I'm really looking forward to be part of the sessions today. And thank you all for giving up time on your Saturdays to join in this work. I will go straight into presenting because I know you've got a busy and full agenda and you've got a tight time frame. So just in a second, I'll share my screen, and we're going to look at the sort of equality issue, the importance of it being able to have everybody involved in this. So let's just make sure we get this all beautiful for you all. We'll just get into it. It's not letting me go to the full screen yet. One sec. Let me just get over there. No. Sorry, it's having some technical issues. I'm not able to get into the full screen. I'll try to share again. One moment. Hopefully you're now able to see everything. Is that working, please, everyone? Is it all good? Lovely, thank you so much. So I've called this session Everyone at the Heart of Education, because I think that word everyone is crucially important. And it also the notion of the heart. It's Aristotle said that educating the mind without educating the heart is not education at all. And I think the last sort of 3 years, and when we've had COVID and so on, this has been shown to be even more true than it's always been before. I want you all to think of a date, and this date is December 2042. This is a very, very significant date because this date is the date that children who are born today will be finished school and entering whatever they're going to do after school. And you think of that and it seems maybe a long way away or not so long. You might even hear in the background as I'm talking tonight, I have my little grandson with me, and he will finish school in December 2042. But if we look at it the other way and we go 18 years backwards, we think of how much has changed in that time. And what will the life be like when that child gets through their school days and has to face all the realities of the school today? So I want you all, as I'm speaking today, to really keep in mind that child who may be born today. There may be one of you that has a child or a grandchild or someone you know whose birthday's around about this time. What's their life going to be like when they get there? What are they going to face in their, what does their education need to prepare them for? And I think in some ways it's a little bit like a tsunami. This is a picture of a tsunami in the sense that we know that there's going to be an enormous amount of change and influence coming upon us, but we often don't prepare for it. We tend to stay with what we know, what we've done before, and think of these things as not having a critical influence on what we need to do for the future. And these are just some of the issues, and these are just some of the many issues that we're facing. Increased globalization. For example, I was recently the world, not in Nigeria. So this notion of global sharing, global huge size, the sharing economy, the fact that our largest transport company in the world, Uber, owns no vehicles. Our largest retail chain in the world, Alibaba, owns no shops. And so you have this idea of very different models of how our businesses and industry works. The speed of change, they said that it took 25 years before there were 1 million people who had telephones when telephones were invented. But these days, when there's a new release of a software, so for example, a new computer game, it can take less than 25 minutes to get 25 million users. So the speed at which these things can become big and huge. We also have a large mistrust of institutions, mistrust of the media, mistrust of our school system. A study from the US found that people trusted the CIA more than they trusted their schools. Even mistrust of parents and families. Part of a big research I'm doing at the moment in Europe is showing the levels of mistrust, for example, of democracy. Large movements to self-employment or working in what they call micro businesses, very small businesses with just 1 or 2 people. A crucial thing has been the collapse of middle-skilled jobs. There's still plenty of low-skilled jobs and plenty of high-skilled jobs, but nothing in the middle. And this is a huge social issue because if we have people who've perhaps even graduated university but are not yet highly skilled, who face unemployment, what's that going to do to the social fabric of our lives? We saw over the last 3 years the impact of loss in health, but also loss of well-being, this idea that happiness is a crucial element of schools being successful. Irrelevance of education, young people starting to question, is it really important for me to get a good education? And that's not to even mention environmental issues, inequality, migration and population changes. And of course, the one that's had a phenomenal impact over the last year, AI and machine learning. So these sorts are just some of those issues we face down the track. But I talked about this talk being about the heart, really about the heart. And I like to use the F word, which is the good F word, which is flourishing. And this idea that it's not just about doing okay, it's about doing really, really well. How do we ensure that the children, the pupils in our schools are not just doing okay, but they're actually flourishing? And flourishing is this idea that you have an absence of all the negatives and very strong psychological well-being, but also good potential for lifelong learning, good potential for your ways that you can live, good potential for the sorts of work you do. And when you have all that flourishing coming together, it impacts us in many, many positive ways. So it can impact us personally in how we feel. It can impact our friendships and our social connections. It impacts our culture, the broader way that we live and exist together. It has a very positive educational impact because we know if a child is not flourishing in school, it has a very, very significant effect on their results across the board. It has an economic impact. If you're not feeling that you're flourishing, you're less likely to do well in your work, you're less likely to be happy in your work, and you're less likely to reap those economic benefits. But also, you've got benefits in terms of how innovative you are. And the economies that are the most innovative are the ones that are doing very well. It also has an important ethical impact, that if we're going to have a fair and just and kind society, we need everybody to feel that sense of flourishing. And the last one's a super important one, which is a catalytic impact. People are often surprised because I've got a lot of qualifications and I'm a professor, that in fact that catalytic impact in my own life was absolutely crucial because I wasn't a strong pupil at school. In fact, I really struggled at school. But in year 5, I had one teacher, and she was only a casual teacher, a supply teacher. But for one term, she could see I could learn things and learn them well as long as they were presented in creative ways. And because she realized that, it's had a lifelong changing effect on my life. And if you've been really lucky, you've had such an incredible teacher who can really influence you throughout the course of your life. And if you're flourishing, that leads to what they call the Human Development Index being good and the happiest children. And I spent a lot of my career until recently in the UK, predominantly in the UK, and we had a very bad statistic because the children in the UK are some of the most unhappy children in the world. And so this happiness is really important. During COVID, we did a project with children where we asked them to share pictures of their emotions. And this was a 5-year-old's drawing of happy. And I don't know, but it doesn't look so happy. It seems to capture a lot of things in concern. And then this child's drawing, she said, this is the other people, but the one with no name is her. You know, in that situation, she didn't feel happy. And the children really struggled. So the happiness thing is very important, but also the economic side of all of this is very important for future success and equality. So if I take a cup of coffee in the United Kingdom and I get it in this sort of cup at a simple place, it's probably going to cost me maybe £1 for that coffee. But if I take exactly the same coffee and I put it in a really nice cafe with music playing and maybe some nice lighting, and I serve it in an artistic cup, this coffee in London will probably cost me £4 or £5, £4 or £5. What's interesting is many of the people prefer now this more expensive coffee because it brings with it this happiness. This aesthetic side is what you're paying for. The coffee's the same. It's just that this coffee is without aesthetics. That coffee is with aesthetics. Which school do you want? Do you want the school that has none of the aesthetics, none of those art subjects being included, none of the learning through the arts, or the one that's the enriched, happy experience? I've talked a bit about the influence of technology, and this is having a profound effect on children's happiness and emotions. And so when we look at the qualities for the future, the sort of qualities we as humans need to be able to integrate and work effectively with the technology, we are looking at things like creativity, the ability to empathize and collaborate, the importance of doing physical, making things, and also coping with learning from failure. Now, why do they predict these qualities for the future? Because they're the qualities that make us as humans best able to flourish in times of rapid change. I refer to these, and you'll hear this again today, as the fusion skills. Now, the good news, these are not things that are completely different than what you might expect. You might even be reassured to see that one of the important fusion skills is written communication. But these are the core skills that you need to be able to flourish in the future. But also the good news when we're talking about a creative arts conference is that the arts, while you can develop these through all subjects, the arts are the richest place to develop all of these fusion skills. So, for example, if children participate in a choir, you can see how they're learning to communicate, they're learning to collaborate, to show initiative, to solve problems. If the children do a play at the end of the school year, or they make a sculpture, or they are doing a dance, planning a dance, all of these creative activities develop all of these skills in one go. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, right in the title of my talk, that the word everyone is super important, because when I visit schools, often they'll show me, they'll say, oh, look, Anne, here's our choir. And I say, but where do all the other children get a chance to sing? How do we make sure that the arts are really accessible to everyone? I did a big evaluation of a music program, a free music program for all children in the United Kingdom. Every child in year 4 in the United Kingdom gets to learn a musical instrument. But we took this word everyone very, very importantly, because we said, what about children with disabilities? What about children with special educational needs? What about children who've never, ever seen a musical instrument? What about children in the countryside? What about children in the inner cities? How do we make sure this is available for everyone? Now, this statement comes from the United Nations Human Rights Law from 1946. And it says everyone has the right to freely participate, not to have to pay, to freely participate in the cultural life of the community and to enjoy the arts, to have fun with the arts. And there's actually a whole range of legal structures, international law structures, that say this must happen in every country in the world if a child is to flourish. This is a requirement that they have, and there's a whole lot of laws backing this. In 2004, they signed the Lisbon Accord and what was called the Seoul Agenda. This was through UNESCO, and it was very much saying there has to be a basic allocation of the arts for everybody. So they say arts education has to be the foundation of development for all children, and all is important. And also that they must be high quality. I'll come back to that point in a minute. And also that if you do that, it helps the child to resolve the issues that they face and to flourish. Now, what's interesting is there's an unequal example of this, even in the arts themselves. So if we look across all of the countries in the world, most children do some visual arts. Most children do some music. But when you come to things like dance or drama or film and media, you start to see there's lots and lots of children who don't get it. And also the importance between it being a compulsory subject or a part of the curriculum for everyone, or something you just have to choose. And that's a crucial difference. So I bring it down really simply to say it's about participation and quality or relevance. How good is it? And what you want to have is this example of really high participation. Everyone gets to do it, and it's good quality. Because it's equally not good idea if lots of people do it, but it's not good quality. Or it's really good quality, but hardly anybody gets it. Hardly anyone has the chance to get it. And this, I think this image that many of you may have seen already, but I think it really sums it up well. What we're talking about here is full access. It's talking not about just equality, not just equity, not just reality, unfortunately, but what if there was no fence there at all? What if they could access it because the fence wasn't there at all? And I wanted to come back to that quality issue because we can always think that what we do is very good quality and it's fine. But when I did the big preliminary study, the global study, the wow factor, and I know many of you know that work, one of the terrible findings of that study was that 22% of all arts and culture that happened in schools was so bad that it actually it negatively affected the child. So it didn't just do nothing, it actually resulted in less creativity, less problem solving, less communication. So you have to make sure when you do this that you do it really, really well. Okay, so that's a crucial element. Now, luckily, what works doesn't rely on you having loads of money. It doesn't rely on you having endless time. It really relies on 10 things being present. And in the introduction, it mentioned, for example, some of the work I've done in Denmark, where the Danish government invited me back to really look at quality within that system. And what we found is that even if you have 5 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, the quality starts to fall. You really want to try to get 10 out of 10. So if you're listening, if you've got a piece of paper next to yourself, or you can watch it again on the recording, please just focus on these next 10 things. So these are in the wow factor, and we'll just go through them. So the first one is collaboration and partnership. Don't work on your own. How do you work with the other teachers in the school? How do you work with people who are, perhaps there are musicians in your community or artists in your community or lovely environments you can go to? Be flexible in your organizational structures. Don't have rigid, hard organizational structures. They don't tend to work well for arts. For example, integration tends to work better than keeping very rigid structures. And also things like we found, for example, group music lessons work better than single music lessons, at least for the first 6 years of learning an instrument. So be flexible. Perhaps it's now time to do more group lessons, or just change the way you do things. This point, accessibility for all. It has to be something that every child gets to do. So if you put it only after school, or only in a private music school, or only for children who choose that subject, then suddenly it's not accessible for all. If you forget about the children who have special education needs or disabilities, it doesn't become accessibility for all. You need to have ongoing professional development. So what you're doing today, you can all put a big tick because it's a great example of that ongoing professional development. Afterwards, time to reflect and evaluate. In fact, what you do after is much more important than the planning before. It's really how you reflect on things you do and change them for the next time you do it. Keep it local. Keep it local. Do something that means something to the people, the children in your community, in your area. This is actually a group of children in London, and they work with a filmmaker, and then they move from their area in London to being in space. But it was still local to their stories and their own connections. This is another image from the United Kingdom, and this is that musical program that I talked about. And what I wanted to show you this is because here you have 2 professional musicians. So the 2 people in white or cream jackets are learning. They are the professional musicians, but the 2 men at the back are the teachers, and they're learning the violin alongside the children. So the children couldn't play and the teachers couldn't play, and together they're all learning and working. And this is a concert that they're holding in the corner of their classroom, but it's still set out like a concert, this importance of performance and exhibition. And also that children are introduced to the languages of the arts, visual languages, musical languages, dramatic languages, and so on. And finally, take risks. Be brave. It's a good thing to try new things. And I say, escape the hamster wheel. We can all be very busy running around the same circle in our work. If you ever buy a whole fish and you want to know if the fish is fresh, you smell the head of the fish, not the tail. Because if you smell the tail, the fish is already rotten the whole way through. And this is really important message about leadership. If you want to know if a school is going to have an arts-rich curriculum, smell the head. And there might be some heads listening. Is it fresh? Is it trying that new thing? Because if the head is fresh, the whole thing will be fresh. And this image was actually inspired by a story from one of the schools that I work with in China. And they said there's a lovely Chinese story that there's a horse busily ploughing the field, and then it sees the clouds up in the sky and it thinks those clouds are crazy horses and it wants to get up there. And when it gets up there, it realizes if you look from above, the field looks very different. And when it rained, the horse came back to the ground and then really plowed their field with lots of energy because they saw from up there how beautiful the field looked. So sometimes too, take time to step up into the sky and look down on the work you're doing. And then it brings you a whole new energy to the work you do. As a leader, and we're all leaders, in whatever job we do, we're leaders. What do you really want for the children? What do you really expect? What attitudes and behaviors do you show the children in terms of how you value the arts and culture in your school? This was a lovely quote. I'm sure you all know Ken Robinson, but he said, what you do for yourselves die when you leave this world, and sadly he has, but what you do for others lives forever. And I think that's vital. And I want to just finish, because I know time's up, with just a few super practical ideas that you can do on Monday. So the first thing I do is whenever I'm trying a crazy idea, I tell people I'm pilot testing it. Because for some reason, when you say you're pilot testing something, people will give you money. People often say, oh, well, here's some money to pilot test something. But also, if it works brilliantly, you can just keep doing it and they forget it was a pilot test. If it doesn't work well, you can always go, well, I tried it, I pilot tested it, it didn't work well, but next time it might work well. So when you want to try a new idea, call it a pilot test. It makes it so much easier for people. Make mistakes. Make mistakes. Really be prepared that, you know, if you're not prepared to have a go, and if something's you're not prepared to go wrong, you won't produce original things. And model that to the students you work with, the children you work with. You know, say to them, let's try and let's see. And when people make mistakes, celebrate it rather than criticize it. Also, I'm a great fan of verbs, because verbs are doing words, right? So when you're talking about vision for the arts, or you're planning strategies, or even what you're going to do, focus on verbs, things you're going to do. You know, maybe you're going to be stopping doing something on Monday. You're stopping something to allow some time for art. Or maybe you're going to be meeting people on Monday. Let's have a meeting to talk about what I learned on the weekend. Or maybe you're going to be driving something. You know, you're going to really say, you know what, in my school or in my classroom, I'm going to be driving this idea of getting the arts in. Think of things in verbs, of actions you'll do straight away. And I always say too, don't worry about best practice. A lot of people in education at the moment talk best practice, breakthrough. Quality is important, but it's more important to have next practice. And if you look at a child learning to walk, when your child takes their first step, we don't go, oh, that was a pretty rubbish bit of walking there. Look, you wobbled and you had to hold on to the side and your feet weren't in the right place. No, what do? We celebrate. We say, that's the start. That's bringing that first step into fruition. And we all go, isn't that wonderful? And we encourage. So please, next practice rather than best practice. Thanks to everyone. Thank you all. And I'm now joining the forum discussion, which I hope is seamless. So, yeah, I'm going to stop sharing. Hopefully, pop back to you people. There you are. I'm here, I hope.
Yes, you are, and you are. Thank you so very much for that. I'm sure that you had every single participant hanging on every one of your words. There were so many yes moments for us just sitting on the panel and hearing what you say. Two things stuck out for me. The one is about preparedness for the future and honoring the children that are to come, obviously honoring the children now as well, but also being able to look into the future. And the other one was something that you said, that it was a teacher that changed your future. And there's so many teachers watching today. I hope that that's been a really inspiring line for you to know that you are the change in education for a child. And so with that, I'm going to introduce the title of our discussion, which is about blurring boundaries, the synergy between science and art in promoting innovation and STEAM education. My first question is for you, which I think is an important one for our participants out there. But before I ask that question, I want to introduce our other two panelists who have joined us as well, Dr. Wendy Taylor and also Dr. Kobie Meyering. Wendy is a paleontologist at the University of Cape Town and spends part of her time in South Africa and the other part in northern Norway, hunting for fossils of the first complex animals that appeared in the Earth's oceans. She's also a learning designer with the Center for Education through Exploration of the Arizona State University in the US, where she helps to create virtual field trips, or VFTs as they call it, and interactive game-like experiences. Wendy is also the founder and director of Cape Town-based NPO Planet Puppet, or Puppet Planet, sorry, that uses artistic-centered pathways to teach science. And then our other esteemed colleague is that of Kobie Meyer, or Dr. Meyering, holds a master's degree in visual arts from the University of Stellenbosch, focusing on primary school art program in Delft, which was part of her research. She has 30 years of experience teaching primary school and high school at secondary school level, specializing in languages, design, and the arts. She currently serves as a lecturer in the visual arts at the CPUT, Faculty of Education. Her PhD research at the University of Stellenbosch explored embodied learning and teaching in visual art, and she continues to extend this exploration across disciplines. Welcome to you, Wendy, and also to Kobie. And the first question to you is, and I think for the benefit of many of our participants listening, is to talk about what does it mean when we talk about integrating the arts with other subjects? With your global perspective, what do you think has caused this impetus to consider integration as a preferred way to educate in the 21st century?
Yes, thank you very much. And I think it relies in sort of four concepts. One is education in the arts. So it's important children do specifically learn music, dance, drama, film, and so on. But then there's education through the arts, and that is the first form of integration, because that's the way artistic things can be used to teach other subjects. So, for example, we know that language learning is most effective. You get the highest scores if you integrate drama into language learning, or you integrate language learning into drama. So we know, and for example, mathematics can be greatly improved if you include dance and active movement and even painting as part of the mathematics learning. So that's where you enhance the subject. So you're enhancing the mathematics or the science, but you're using the arts. But the next important form of integration is where the education is itself. The art itself is an education. So, for example, I use the example of Picasso's painting of Guernica. I'd only ever seen it as a small print in a book until quite recently, where I saw it in real life in Spain. And I defy anybody who stands in front of that to not absolutely have the deepest education about war, because you cannot stand in front of Guernica without feeling completely embodied in your learning about war. So therefore, the art is a form of education. And of course, the magical fourth one is where education itself becomes so beautiful that it becomes an artwork. And that's why I actually called the report the wow factor, because if you've been lucky enough when you're teaching, you know that moment when something really magical happens beyond what you've ever tried to cover. And that's where you're in this complete harmony of learning and culture and creativity and industry and activity and enthusiasm and motivation. And that's what Bourdieu, the philosopher, referred to as habitus, this idea that it's when all things come together, the skills, the knowledge, the attitudes, the dispositions, the social. And I think that's the real value of an integrated approach, which then leads to the fusion skills.
Thank you very much for that. We're currently in a situation where we are not experiencing those levels of integration that we would like in our education system, and the reasons are many, as I'm sure you know, having looked at education systems across the world. But how do we go about transforming these very long-held notions that learning has to happen in silos, that there has to be a structure and a system, and we have to learn one thing after the next, and so on, because we need to assess it and we need to know what the students' progress has been, et cetera, et cetera. How do we inspire a different way of thinking to support this idea that learning needs to be more integrated? And perhaps you want to talk to that specifically in relation to our topic this morning, which is about art and science, for example.
Yes. So what happens in all countries of the world? Children, when they start learning, so in the kindergarten or in the preschool, it's all integrated. The teachers are very able to teach science and art and everything in an integrated way. And I have to say, most primary school teachers are quite good. But the more we stay in school, the more disconnected the things become. Now, the thing is, assessment is radically changing. Even the dreaded PISA process, you know, the OECD's ranking of all the countries in the world, it's changing radically. And the next round of PISA is going to have the fusion skills at their heart. And so the simple way to do it is actually what children do naturally. And if only teachers did it naturally too, is start with curiosity. What question do you have? What thing is interesting to you? And then when you start to investigate that, you enter the wonderful world of problems and projects, and naturally it's integrated. So even if you start every lesson with a question, you're going to encourage a more integrated approach. Why is something like that? You know, why is this, why does water run down a hill? Now that's going to be brilliant with watercolor painting, or it's going to be brilliant with perhaps some musical instruments with water in them. What happens when you have, and it's also going to work with explaining gravity and science and flow. And it's much richer than saying, today we're going to look at the flow of water. So you start with a rich question and curiosity and get the children interested in what you're going to have. And naturally, it then involves everything. Another really practical, simple idea is I say in every school staff room, have boxes of resources related to a topic and encourage all teachers, regardless of what they teach, to shove things in the box. So what are some artworks about water? What are some pictures about water? What are some things you could do in music about water? Put them in the box, and whoever's teaching about water, take the box and have a look at the surprises inside the box. Simple, practical thing. It also saves you preparation time.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that. A really practical way of going about it at ground level in a school, but also to look at the way and the methodology and the way in which we teach, that we're actually starting with our child or with our learner. And we are not teaching that person as an empty vessel that we have to fill with a whole lot of content. So I'd like to pose my next question to Kobe, our panelists who have been waiting patiently. Kobe, I know that your research into embodied learning has been a particular passion of yours. How do you think embodied learning supports the shift towards integrated learning approaches, and how does the approach play out when we integrate subjects like art and science, for example?
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Liz. And if I can just say hello. And it is such an absolute honor to have listened to you and to sit here and talk with you. Actually, you have said it all. And I want to start with what you asked Liesl, and ended her wonderful talk about the word adding ing, the action words. And this is all about the word that I think it's kind of has become a missing link in our education, the word doing. And doing involves the body. And I think especially in South Africa, where we have this wonderful, diverse bodies that is present in our classes. And we don't tap into the body knowledge of our learners. We only tap into and we expect of them what happens, what we feed them mind-wise. Whereas by now, if we think about all the technology that's available, that we can actually pick up the wonderful ways our brains work, and also if we think about epigenetics, that our children carry in them the knowledge of ages, and we don't tap into it. And the thing is that it goes further than the mind, and that's why we are not comfortable and we haven't become used to tapping into it. And I think doing, and that's what I experienced in my research, by just doing, the body brings to attention knowledge that the mind on its own, not that we can divide the two, but our language still keep us using that kind of dualistic language. It's doing brings forth things while we act. And that's why I've really started to, I think the one thing that we can do is, and I would like to ask you that question on behalf of many teachers, and I know the student teachers it's very difficult for them if they don't have knowledge about the arts. And most of our student teachers, for example, don't have specific knowledge about arts. They've had such little experience that they don't feel comfortable. And something that I read about you, you said that you really prefer involved classes. You had a very specific word that you said, vibrant atmosphere in a school. And if we walk in our passages in many schools, it's quiet. And children sit. They sit in desks like they did 100 years ago. And that is really a worrisome something that we need to change. So if you can tell maybe teachers how can we do a vibrant atmosphere without, and I don't even want to use the word disciplinary, but that is what teachers are worried about. And what, in your experience, if we are brave enough and we risk to start learners using their bodies in very simple ways. If you can maybe give us some examples of your experience, that gradually, will it change? Will we have chaos? How do we deal with the chaos in the beginning, etc.? Thank you.
So much, Kirby. Anne, if you'd like to respond to Kirby's question.
Thank you, and it's a great question. And we all fear it, don't we? We sort of think, you know, if they're all sitting still in the class and someone walks by, they'll be thinking we're doing a good job. In fact, if you think of any child you know or a child you have, it's if they have to sit still in the church or even in a cafe or in their pram at the shopping centre, they get naughty, they get restless, they get irritable. If you take them to the playground or the beach or out into the forest where they can actively learn, they're no problem. They're very, very good. I was recently in some kindergartens in Denmark, and there were children were fighting and they weren't very happy. And then they let them actively learn, and suddenly all the fighting stopped. And what's more, the teachers enjoyed themselves more and the children were really learning. And then the teachers were surprised. They said, oh, that lesson went on for an hour and a half and the children learned so much and the time just went by. And you just think, it's actually the job we do now is very, very hard. If you have to have children sitting still in the one seat, doing boring work day after day, you have to have a very hard job to keep them disciplined. But if they're able to actively learn, then they're very happy and they're able to learn and the time goes much quicker and they're really interested. Just think of yourself. How long do you get bored waiting for a bus? But what about when you're actively doing something? You know, the time just flies. So I think be brave. Maybe the first time you do it, the children you think, oh, what do the other teachers think? Call it a pilot test. Tell them you're going to do active learning. Say my class will be noisier than usual. This is important because communication is important. So have a go. Yeah, just have a go.
And
for
if
that-
I can,
Sorry, Kirby, you have another question.
yes, can I just also ask Anne, because I'm really speaking also for my student teachers and the many teachers that during CTL training that really express their uncertainty of how to go about the arts because they feel they don't have knowledge. But I've really started to think that if we can do very simple things like just moving, for example, using your hands, and I've actually read that in an article, someone that did a study on it, also a pilot test, and that became a study. There's an example of it. Using your hands to show the magnetic pull of the magnetic pull, to show a magnetic pull in science. As simple as that. So if I think if you can embroider on for teachers on the simplicity of using everyday embodied movements, even if they start with just that.
Absolutely, that's right. And also simple things like, for example, if you're halfway through explaining how to do a science experiment, why not say, stop, let's just have 3 minutes and we'll draw it. What's going to happen next? What do we think will happen next? Let's draw the picture. And just all they need is a pencil or anything. They can draw on any surface and just do it for 3 minutes or a very short time, in the middle of a language lesson. Let's stop. let's just imagine, let's all try and be that teacher using a voice to say those things. What voice will we have? You know, quick, 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 and then go forward. But also reassuring those teachers. My doctoral study a long time ago was looking at 22 amazing teachers of art. And one of the interesting things was there was no similarity in how much they had studied art or not studied art. So, in fact, that while it's important to be able to learn and to be able to have a lifelong interest, many of them had started that interest purely from themselves. They hadn't learnt about it in anywhere. And one of the things they all shared in common was they were collectors. They used to make collections of things. And I would say, if you can only do one thing to your students, start collecting things, and also be willing to take the children out of the classroom. And it doesn't have to be right out of the classroom. It can just be, what about sit under a tree? Or what about let's go to another corner of the classroom? Or let's push the desks back in the classroom. Make different spaces for the learning to happen. So first of all, be confident, don't worry. Amazing art teachers had no qualifications, don't worry. Have a go, start collecting things, and start just doing little things a bit differently.
And for that, I think the message that's coming across here, colleagues and educators, is courage. Courage. And actually, when you become a pilot, flying an aeroplane, to talk about that kind of pilot, you need to be brave and you need to have courage to do something that really goes against the natural instinct and abilities of human beings, which is to fly. We don't have wings, but we've somehow taken a risk and we've done that. So I think that's really important. Quibi, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the risks that you've taken, and also in relation to your research that you actually dealt when you were doing your PhD and working with the school program in Delft? What were some of the challenges on the ground that you experienced in your research about embodied learning and integrating the arts with other learning areas?
Thank you, Liesl. I think one of the first challenge that came to mind when I was really actively trying to incorporate embodied knowledge, bringing that into my classes, happened during COVID. And that was such a huge learning curve for me, but because here I was trying to bring embodiment into the classroom, but suddenly we weren't meeting via our bodies anymore. We were all sitting behind screens at our homes, and there was no interaction between us. So that to me was really a very big challenge. And I've learned so much from that challenge, and I had to take a risk to carry on or wait until after COVID, which we didn't know how long it was going to take. So I took up the risk. I did take the risk and did embodied exercises with my students. And the one thing that I started doing myself, and that's the one thing that I've really learned, is that don't expect anything from your students that you don't do yourself. So that what does embodied learning really mean? Apart from that, you use your body, which is the obvious thing, but it also means that you are connected to yourself, that you really are in your body, and that you're not in your mind out there on a different planet while your body sit here. And it might sound logic, but actually I've realized that I am mostly not in my body. I'm not present, I'm not here. And that was something that the students normally, I think I'm not the only one that really experienced that. So this, I had to use methods that help my students to bring them into their bodies, to be present, to be able to experience the present moment where they are, without others that around them can inspire them, because that's also a wonderful aspect, but then we didn't have it. So I did things like heart-brain coherent breathing. And I'm so glad you had that quote up of Aristotle, that if we don't teach with the heart, and I think I've read somewhere that actually we first know things with our heart, and then the message is sent to our brains. So to be heart-brain connected is one of the most important things. So I started the students off every day with doing heart-brain coherent breathing exercises, just to help them to come into their own bodies and to connect literally to where they are. And then we started with drawing and the art exercises. So Liesel, that really helped me. That is a technique that I've now brought into all our classes. And we did an art conference with 800 students a week ago on our campus, where all the students started doing this heart-brain coherent breathing. And afterwards, when I had to run to a class, it suddenly, before teaching, and I felt this really very actually disrupted energy in the class. It came to me, just do this quickly, the heart brain. And then I realized that I think by now it's become part of my teaching language, because teachers need to be also self-regulated. That's what the heart brain coherent breathing do. So Liesel, that's just one aspect. And I remember when I taught at Delft and I had the art program there, it really is, our children come into our classes, many of them are highly, highly traumatized, and we really need to help them to self-regulate. Everything else becomes easier the moment we are connected and present in our bodies and self-regulated.
So much for that, Kirby. So amazing to hear about what it is that you do. Wendy, I know you've been waiting on the other side. Welcome, and it's lovely to have you with us. Thank you for overcoming and staying the course so that we can connect with you. Wendy, if I can jump in with a question to you just straight away. What is your experience as the founder of Puppet Planet, but also as a learning designer? What has those two aspects of your life done to convince you about the value of integrated learning between art and science?
I don't know if I'm out of sequence with my, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit with the connection this morning, but it's such an honor. I have to say it's such an honor to be here and to even have a tiny perspective to add. But what I would like to say as a educator and mostly a scientist, geoscience educator, the arts has transformed my teaching, our workshops, our programs. It has been the most amazing journey and we're only a few years into it, presenting science-based, arts-infused programs at the Ezekiel Museum here in Cape Town. And I just want to make the point that, there's such a focus on how the arts are transforming education, but I also want people to know that it's transforming the scientists and the science educators who are presenting these programs in the field that I'm in. And we're in informal education and public venues, teaching about the history of life, space exploration, all these amazingly, already they're very exciting topics, but the arts has just, infusing the arts into what we're doing has been just absolutely life-changing, I can only say. And the heart, we often laugh, some of the people that I work with at the museum and other organizations, we almost laugh because we're moved to tears a lot of times when we do these programs, because we see the science that we love and we're so immersed in come to life. And it's just been a transformative experience. And I think it's helped a lot in breaking down the silos within our departments, teaching and coming from it at an arts infused direction. I mean, I can't, and I'm just like, how can I get more of it into everything that we're doing? And it's actually even spurred new research directions, new ways of looking at the research that we've been looking at. So it's just been this incredible transformation for us. And gosh, I don't know how much more excited I could be. And I'm looking for ways to connect with more art teachers to get their input and their insights in helping us design, these approaches. I'm not an educational researcher myself, so I'm more of a scientist and informal educator. So having, connections with artists and in our program, through our program, we connect with artists and musicians. And we're doing science through song. We're looking at dance and integrating more of that into our programs, but we focus mostly on puppetry. So I don't know, this is a bit all over the place, but I'm just so excited. I can't practically contain myself. So
Wendy, that's wonderful. And excitement and passion is definitely what today is about. But can I just pose another question to you in relation to what you've said? And that is around a fear that sometimes educators have, that with integration somehow comes a loss of quality or a reduction in the quality or the essence or the heart of a learning area, whether it's science, whether it's art.
Yeah.
What would you say to teachers who expressed that concern?
Yeah, I think they just need more, and I have read that in many studies, that a lot of teachers are worried about that aspect, and I did sort of, going into this in the beginning, worry a little bit about that on my own, like how is this going to water down our science? But I found that the more experience I had, the more I learned that there are lots of ways to keep that content fresh and to actually really enhance how you present the content and help with the learning goals that you're trying to achieve. So I would say with the teachers, from my angle, would be to get more experience and to do more professional development around methodologies and including these, art activities into your lessons and into your programs. So I think for me, it was mostly through experience and spending time with local artists and musicians. And I wish I had more connection with local art teachers. So I'm hoping out of this conference, there will be some ways or new pathways that educators like myself at museums and science centers can get more connected with the art community and the teaching community in that area. So I think just probably experience and just learning that there are ways to do this without losing that connection with your content. And it actually enhances, it makes you really go back and think through, what objectives are you trying to convey to your learners. So it's really helped me a lot.
So, Wendy, you've
And
said
Lisa,
a really crucial thing there. Sorry, Kirby, do you wanted to add to?
No,
what
it's Anne.
Wendy
I just
said?
wanted I wanted to come in with some reassurance.
Certainly.
I also conducted the research for the Wellcome Trust, looking at what 10 years at the impact of 10 years of very high-level scientists, like top scientists in their field, who were working along top artists of all different types in their field. And they did this over 10 years. And what we found was it had really led to far more high quality scientific discoveries and innovations, but it also led to propelling the careers and the qualities of the artwork produced by the artists. So that it's a case of all good things go together. When you bring the talents of different disciplines into one thing, it really, really enhances the quality of the science. In fact, for the Wellcome Trust, a large scientific organization, they said it was revolutionary to how it changed science. And they gave all sorts of findings, things like improved innovation, better communication, greater ethics consideration was another finding. So I think these, bringing them together brings the best of both things when they join together. So the experiences that Wendy has had were also the case for very high level artistic and science research, the Sci-Art program, Science and Art program from Wellcome Trust.
And Anne, when we are speaking to educators, you've spoken about some of those sort of practical implementations on the ground, but when we are speaking to policymakers, curriculum writers, what do you think are some of the strategies that can be employed to actually move towards and to make these shifts in our education system?
I think it came out of Cobra's work as well, the importance of making and doing and embodied things. And whether it's art or science or a combination of integrated. Sadly, and Wendy has worked in Norway, but sadly, when I did the Norwegian study, I went into classrooms in the secondary school where children were asleep on their desks. And I said to the teacher, why are they asleep? These are 16-year-olds. They should be full of energy. And they said, oh, they do more interesting things online at night, and then they're really tired in class. And I thought, what does this say? And also the children, when I spoke to them, said, every lesson we go from maths, where we look at the textbook and write in our book. Then we go on to science, where we look at the textbook and write in the book. A lot of kids had studied science all year and done 1 or 2 experiments. They'd done 1 or 2 things with practical material. And same, there were kids who'd done art lessons, music, and they said, we've just done it on the board. We've not touched a musical instrument. You know, so it's the importance. I just really underline what Kobe said. Doing, making, practical learning, embodiment, take them outside, because that's a simple thing. It's not a cost thing. It's just an attitude of mind thing that you can do. If a lesson is not making something or doing something, it's not a lesson. It's not learning. It's not really embodying new things. So that would be the thing I say, make sure you're doing, making, creating practical things in whatever you're teaching.
And then, thank you, Anne, for that. My final question to any or all of the panelists is, how do we inspire collaboration between educators, policymakers, administrators, and curriculum writers? Because it's clear that that it's a team that needs to come together to enable this to happen. School systems have to change, the way we run our school, the way we timetable. Being able to be allowed to do that, something has to shift in the curriculum. So it's not just the teacher in her classroom necessarily. So the question to all panelists is, how do we inspire that kind of collaboration?
I think, Liesl, the question that I also have, and luckily we've got Anne with us to answer this or to help us with it. And we are really in a transition time. And I think I'm speaking for, I would actually love it if Nina could also say from the WCED side, how can we really start, because that also applies for us at universities, how can we start teaching our student teachers to do
I lost Kobe. Yeah, I lost Kobe.
Yes, I think I don't know how that happened, but I think I'm back now. I said that Anne's picture of the fish is what I would also like her to speak about now, because I think if we can have some kind of system that really the principals, the curriculum officers at schools need to buy into this integrated embodied learning. A very simple something that we, for example, can do at universities is to tell students that part of their lesson plans need to show us how you are going to incorporate, what are the kids going to do? As simple as that. Make it part of their lesson plans. At the same at schools, curriculum officers, it should really be the talk and the, like for up to now, we've really did the much more prescriptive, and that was the thing that we've
A minute left. We seem to have lost your audio. Thank you, Kirby, very much. I'm sorry to have cut you there. We just have less than a minute. Final thoughts, Anne, from you as we say thank you for this amazing discussion, Wendy, Kirby, and Anne.
Yes, I'd just say the same, that really it is about bringing those different areas together.
Let's see if Anne's still with us.
So many can you hear me? There are so many fantastic leaders in schools, and I'm inspired every day by the work that I see. And I think many policymakers stick back to the usual thing.
Just experiencing the technology. And we're going to get Anne. Hi, you're back with us. Final words from you, Anne.
Yeah, I was just saying.
Just say she's muted.
Yeah, she's muted. Okay.
Sorry.
You can keep speaking, Anne, but I think she said goodbye. Okay,
so
we're sorry
we've
about
lost
that. Thank you
audio.
so much for your wisdom and for your generosity this morning. Thank you so very much, participants, for joining us in this amazing discussion.
Thank you, Liesl. Thank you, Anne. Thank you for an exhilarating morning. It was very, very interesting to listen to Anne. I watched the comments and, you know, it was high fives all the way. I just want to pick up on a few things. I am so inspired. I think the word flourish really is the umbrella word for me of the day. I saw Yvette commenting to say, you know, that if we start with flourishing, and Liesl, you always speak about children being happy in the classroom, the whole notion of joy, bringing joy back in teaching is so important. That was one thing. Another golden moment for me, which I think we often forget about, is the whole thing of curiosity. And Anne said that is how you start any integrative process, with curiosity, that question, that stimulus, instead of just saying we will now look at the water cycle, but to start with something that will tickle the child's curiosity and interest, bring in all the senses, bringing the embodiment. That makes it for and I'm going to quote Yvette again, a peak experience in education. And then, of course, the whole idea of embodiment. And I think we can all, as arts practitioners, say that we have lived this and felt this in our own skins, as to say that if we are not in an embodied state, if we are not connected, as Kobe said, connected to ourselves and working through the body, through the senses, which we so often forget. You know, we miss such a golden opportunity, Liesl, and Odile, of really learning deeply. And then something that made me extremely excited. And, you know, I must say that the National Education Department is moving in that direction, where Anne spoke about the fusion skills that are becoming part of formal assessment practice internationally. And, you know, that is happening in our GEC in South Africa, where the competencies, we talk about the competencies which one can directly link to the fusion skills, that those are becoming part of assessment. It is a huge challenge to authentically and appropriately and with validity assess those fusion skills. It's a very subjective, you know, set of skills to assess. But it's very good to know that we are, you know, moving towards that. Odile, I think we are going over to you now. I'm just so excited, we cannot stop.
Thank you, Anina. I would like to just remind you about our gamification today. I hope that you are taking some inspiration from what we've been doing and working on your 30-second jingle. 30 seconds goes by very quickly, so it's not that long. It's not as long as you think. Please do post your jingles on Instagram and Facebook using hashtag CAC2024. Please do remember also that we've got exhibitors that are doing really exciting things in the exhibition space. Muskanda is offering a free concert to the winner of their giveaway. So they've got an album cover giveaway there, and if you win, they will come and give a free concert at your school. Art Assist for Teachers is also having a giveaway, and the Ear Academy is giving away 6 guitars for your school. So please go and check these spaces out. We want to give you prizes.
Yes, and again, it's all about connectivity. Adele, you will see me looking at my screen all the time, and I'm on the community. I'm with you guys. I am fascinated by what you have to say, colleagues and friends, on this platform. It is so enriching, and as I've said before, Liesl and Adele, you know, this conference is really about the input of everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I'm reading what Luna August just spoke about. And then Marna Meyer, I see you are very happy to see Dr. Kobi, who was your lecturer. Emil Janssen, I cannot agree more with what you are saying about embodiment and dance. So I must say, just reading through the chats and what is happening in the community on the Hoover app is absolutely, you know, bringing another texture, another layer to this conference. It really makes it a multi-dimensional experience. So please continue with that, because that is how we are really enriching one another. Adele, over to you.
Thank you so much. Next, we are going to be heading to our set of breakaways. Breakaways 7, 8, and 9. This will be directly followed by breakaways 10, 11, and 12. And we join back here on the main stage at 12 p.m. when we will enjoy another key address by Professor Anne Bamford.